We have FMMA co-founders Jay Kempton and Dr. Keith Smith. Jay Kempton is with us from the Kempton Group, the president and CEO of the Kempton Group, and Keith Smith, the managing partner at the Surgery Center of Oklahoma. And we're going to talk for a few minutes today about our upcoming conference, Yates 2021, where we can again have live in-person conferences. And we're very excited to once again have an in-person conference. And from all the feedback that we've gotten from members over the last few weeks, most people are very excited about the opportunity to come together and network and learn about the free market, how it's working in healthcare. And so we wanted to talk a little bit today about our upcoming conference. The theme that we have chosen this year is, Are You Ready for the Red Pill? And most of you will know that that is a reference to the movie The Matrix, a very iconic movie that even if you haven't seen the movie, you probably know the cultural reference of what the red pill means. So we're going to get started and let Jay Kempton sort of give us a little background about how we chose this theme and why it's important for our membership this year.
Yeah, thanks, James. So if there are folks out there that have not seen the movie, I'll give a very quick synopsis. The red pill does represent a way for one of the main characters to see the world, which in the movie is a fictionalized creation from an alien race that has enslaved humans and has created the reality that we see around us. Is really it's really just think of it as a very enhanced holographic image that's kind of beamed into our brains, and so it's a very it's a kind of a strange mind twisting movie, but this our main character has been given the opportunity by somebody that he can either continue to live in the world that is around him that he enjoys for the most part. He's always thought that, well, I kind of have this feeling, even though I enjoy life, I feel like things just don't make sense and things don't react the way I think they should. And it just feels like that there's something wrong out there in the world. And this other character comes to him and says, well, you were right. There is something wrong with the world, but I can't show it to you. You have to live it, and you get the choice of taking the red pill or the blue pill. If you take the blue pill, you go back to your so-called reality and just live blissfully as you can. Or if you take the red pill, then you will see the world and the reality for what it truly is. And in the movie, at least, all of humanity is actually, we don't live in the world that we think we live in. We actually live deep inside the earth, and we are essentially being used to generate power for this alien race. And so all of our reality is just something that we has been projected into our mind. So it's kind of out there, but why we chose this as a metaphor for what we see today in healthcare and what we're trying to achieve with the FMMA is that, especially for employers out there, which we see as buyers of healthcare goods and services, along with your employees, as a lot of us, we know that something is wrong with the healthcare world. In other words, we continue to see our costs go up. We can continue to see our benefits go down. We see that our costs go up faster than the wages that we have, dollars available to increase wages for our employees. So our employees are actually moving backwards, yet the company is spending more and more on them every single year as being absorbed by healthcare. And a lot of employers are saying to themselves, my consultant keeps telling me, and my TPA keeps telling me, and my PPO network that I'm with keeps telling me how much money that they're saving me, yet my costs are continuing to go up by either high single digits or double digit numbers every single year. And so there is this feeling that maybe there is a truth out there, and there absolutely is. And that is that most of the people that an employer surrounds themselves with have pretty serious conflicts of interest in regards to the advice that they're given. A lot of large hospital systems, along with some of the negotiating companies that most employers utilize, like a Blue Cross or an Aetna or United Healthcare, or a multi-plan. Those networks are supposed to be watching my back and negotiating very aggressively with the healthcare system on my behalf. And what we hope that you find in this year's conference is that all is not what it seems to be. A lot of the negotiations are, the discounts are illusory. They are based on a false premise to begin with, which a lot of times is the medical provider's charge master, which you'll learn more about as well. But it, just like in the movie, the main character that chose the red pill because he wanted to find the truth did set him free, but his new reality in the truth was not quite as pleasant at first as his false reality. It was not real comfortable learning the truth because it was harder and sometimes it was a little perilous. But this character eventually found out that, not only myself, but the entire human race has to learn the truth for us to really take back our true freedom. And we certainly can see the parallels between a silly sci-fi movie, The Matrix, and what we really are all facing right now in healthcare today. So, James, that was a long explanation, but trying to get people up to speed with The Matrix, which you got to watch about 3 times to figure out what's going on. I think I did a pretty good job.
You did a great job. Yeah, there are definitely similarities between the movie and what we're facing with healthcare. And I think our mission this year, as you said, is to really bring more of the buyers and the employers to the movement. And we're seeing sort of a slow and steady growth of that, but we really need to see some great awakening, I guess you would say, of the self-funded employers to see that they can be a part of this movement. And we feel like we have a pretty good critical mass of sellers as they followed the Surgery Center of Oklahoma, and the DPC movement is growing rapidly. And what really we need to push those over the edge to keep growing the movement, add fuel to the fire, is the employers waking up, as well as having more good advisors and TPAs like yourself join the movement. And I think it's been nice to see this year a growing number of those come over and become members of the FMMA and are very excited to come to our conference. Dr. Smith, did you have anything to add to that from your perspective? And obviously, it's a benefit for you to see, and sellers like yourself, as you see more employers coming to the movement.
Yeah, and as we were discussing prior to starting this video, I think that our last theme of Burn Your Ships was primarily directed at the sellers in the marketplace. However, there was overlap, and the buyers needed to wrap their minds around the idea of burning their ships and going a different sort of all-in direction. The same with this theme. Take the red pill, while primarily aimed at the buyers who need to wake up and realize they've been hoodwinked. They've been sold a bill of goods. They have drunk the Jim Jones Kool-Aid of their consultant company. They need to wake up. There's overlap, though, with the sellers. I think the sellers in the marketplace need to red pill themselves in order to see the extent to which they have functioned as an accomplice in the bankruptcy of patients to whom their care was entrusted. So I think the sellers also need to be red pilled to come to grips and acknowledge the inevitability that the market is going to decide what happens. And if the sellers are not in line and in sync with what the market dictates, then they're going to be steamrolled. It's never too late to jump on board, but it's harder to jump on board if you come on board late, because the buyers in this industry are not as easily going to forgive the latecomers for their sins. So this red pill theme, I think, is extremely important, as we discussed earlier, for the buyers. They need to send a signal into the marketplace that makes the water seem safe for the sellers. But the sellers also have to acknowledge their role, whether individual physicians or facilities, in the strip mining of the patients' wallets who come to them for care.
Yeah, it's a classic conundrum that we see in this movement, that buyers and sellers are always waiting. Everybody is reluctant to be first, but they're lining up to be second, right? In this. And so we're constantly caught in kind of a chicken or the egg dynamic. But I think that, naturally speaking, and this is why Dr. Smith and I play off each other so well, because we do live in kind of the opposite sides of the same coin. But I think that the buyers really should drive and thereby demand competition in the healthcare marketplace, demand transparency, demand upfront pricing. And as Dr. Smith said, the market does need to be ready to respond to those demands, because as employers do wake up, they certainly do have expectations. They do expect to be able to get a price when it's requested. They do expect to be able to take, for the provider to be able to take a bundled payment, even whether it's directly or through a clearinghouse type of apparatus. But it really takes both sides of the buyer-seller equation to work. And hopefully the employers out there will see that this reality that they've been dealing with, it is off kilter. It does have some fundamental flaws, and we do hope that the attendees of the conference are going to learn about those flaws. They're going to be able to see through them, see the truth, and then they will start to demand more and demand better from not only the medical community, but also from their trusted advisors and their trusted partners.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of trusted advisors, we do have a number of those, as I mentioned, will be attending the conference, but we're lucky to have Carl Schuessler, who is with Mitigate Partners, who is one of the good guys out there that is working to lower the cost for his clients. And he's going to come and share a very specific success story that he had with DeSoto Memorial Hospital in Florida. We also have at least two panels of executives from employers that have worked with people like the Kempton Group and with some other TPAs and advisors out there that are going to be sharing their stories. So I think those specific sessions will be very beneficial to employers, as well as our keynote speaker, which I think most people will be interested in hearing from, Steve Forbes, who has long been a strong proponent of the free market and who recently came and took a tour of the Surgery Center of Oklahoma. Dr. Smith, you want to sort of comment on what that was like, and what type of insights do you think he gained from seeing firsthand the surgery center and that he can bring to the conference?
Yeah, I met Steve Forbes, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago. A friend who is a an acquaintance and associate of Dr. Per Byland at Oklahoma State University alerted me to Forbes visiting Oklahoma State, and there was a dinner the night before, and they thought it would be good for Mr. Forbes to hear about what we were doing at the surgery center. So I was invited to a dinner, and we spent a good part of the evening speaking. What shocked me was he already knew all about us. Dave Chase and two other authors had written in Forbes magazine an article or two about us, mentioning us, and he'd done his homework. Prior to this dinner, he knew who he was having dinner with. He knew what to ask. And it was at that time that I told him, and I haven't told this story really very often, about my parents' ideological journey, about their decision to go to Russia to see if the socialism that they thought can't quite be that bad could possibly be that bad. But that's just like my mom and dad to go see for themselves. And when they came back, my brother had gone off to medical school and wondered what had happened to his parents because they were completely transformed. I had that conversation with Steve Forbes at that dinner that night several years ago. Well, I had the opportunity, and his team reached out and wanted to do a podcast. I want to say about 6 months ago, and right out of the chute, he says, tell us a story about your mom and dad going to Russia. And I thought, he didn't take any notes in that meeting, that dinner that we had in Oklahoma State University. But, maybe afterwards he sat down and jotted down some of the things we discussed. But I was shocked at this man's mind, at his intellect. When he reached out to me, it was real clear that he wanted to see it for himself. He wanted to tour the surgery center. So we showed him around. He asked just the most insightful questions. But when he asked me to do the podcast, I took my moment prior to going live and said, I want to talk to you at some point about keynoting FMMA. And before his handler could cut me off, he said, I would love to talk to you about that. So, when we reached out, sure enough, he is so excited, I think, to be part of this. And his remarks they'll just be wonderful. He's a very smart guy. He's very approachable. It's incredible. Very kind, very approachable. He does his homework. He'll know everything about the organization and everything that's ever happened at FMMA before he arrives. So it's very exciting. It's quite an honor to have him on board. And I think he represents a red pill in himself. I mean, if an employer sees that Steve Forbes is keynoting FMMA, they have to wonder what in the world is going on. Have I been lied to? What is this organization? So, yeah, I think to some extent, his being involved in our conference is a red pill in itself, and it gives us, right or wrong, it gives us, the added credibility perhaps with employers who need a nudge or a kick.
That's right. Yep, I agree.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting to see the response that we've already had just in announcing that he will be coming just a few short weeks ago. We only have about 5 sponsorship spots left. So I did want to just sort of briefly mention some of those that have already stepped up to the plate to be sponsors of the FMMA. Of course, the Surgery Center and Kempton, you guys are always platinum sponsors of the FMMA, with all of you guys and your organizations do for us. But we have TPAC Underwriters that stepped up to be a large sponsor this year. Jay, you can tell us a little bit more about them. Yep. And Payer Compass, a few others, but go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, TPAC is a stop loss underwriter for employers that are partially self-insured, and they're very progressive thinkers. They have been innovators for their entire history of being in business. And so, yeah, we're very excited to have them on board as a sponsor.
Yeah, Payer Compass, I know you guys both work very closely with them. Of course, the FIA group has always been a strong supporter. Milliman as well. It does a lot of risk management type things. I've always been a strong supporter of the FMMA, the Philadelphia American Life, the Forum for Healthcare Freedom, Scripta. You might want to mention them too, but they're one of the good guys in the prescription drug area.
Yeah, the Scripta is a very disruptive company in a good way. They are not a pharmacy benefit manager. They're not a PBM, but they are kind of a new class of vendor out there. They're known as a PBM overlay, and they really kind of fill in the gaps in a lot of ways of what we would all envision that a PBM maybe should do. They fill in a lot of those gaps. And so, yeah, we're really excited to have them at the conference, and would encourage any and all of the employers to definitely stop by and visit with them. And then also the physicians in attendance as well. I think Scripta they kind of pride themselves as working hand in hand with the physician community to really help patients become more and more aware of high value drugs, the right drug at the right time for the right patient.
Right. And of course, our friends down in Austin, Sean Kelly and his brother with Texas Medical Management, they're also sponsors again this year, as well as my friend in Washington, Moses Lake Pharmacy, who is an independent pharmacist and cash pharmacist. And he's really branched out to several states now, not just in the state of Washington. So he's doing some interesting work in that regard. And then also wanted to mention specifically Sesame, who was a new sponsor this year, started by David Goldhill. Dr. Smith, you know him fairly well and have had some conversations with him, but their company is growing quickly, and we're fortunate to have him come and maybe tell his own red pill story as to how the death of his father really woke him up to seeing the problems in healthcare. So we're excited to have them on board this year.
Yeah, and I would like to say a word to any of the physicians that are watching this video who are yawning now because of all of the conversation about the self-funded industry and these self-funded employers, and oh my gosh, this is employer-driven healthcare. And I want to red pill the doctors that are yawning right now to understand the concept dubbed by Marty McCary called proxy buyers. I love that phrase because there are individuals in the marketplace who decide to sell as free market participants. But in the back of their mind, they think, well, what in the world difference is it going to make if I do this by myself? There are buyers out there who are individuals who either don't have any insurance at all, or they have a high deductible and they're paying out of their own pocket and they have sticker shock. And they're wondering, what difference can I make? How can I affect the market by insisting that I only pay X number of dollars for my knee arthroscopy? But then there are proxy buyers. And this is where all of the doctors out there need to dust off their dictionaries and come to the conference and learn all of these little 3-letter things like TPA and PBM and try to wake up, because these proxy buyers in this self-funded world are the ones who have the gorilla sort of strength to drive prices down and quality up. And then all of the individuals in the marketplace will benefit. So again, this red pill theme, I think, applies to anybody in the audience now who is yawning because, oh my gosh, we're talking about employer-driven healthcare. Well, you need to wake up, because that proxy buying gorilla is who is probably going to save private practice. They're probably going to save individual patients from bankruptcy because all of these boats will rise. So again, this metaphor of the red pill, it applies in so many ways at so many different levels. I just wanted to throw that in.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't take everyone shopping with a transparent price to affect the market. It maybe as little as 10%. Once that 10% are contracting and have a true marketplace, then everyone else benefits. So I completely agree with that.
I'll tell you one more thing. When Steve Forbes was here, I named some of the large companies in Oklahoma that are not buying through a direct contract, and he laughed. That was maybe the biggest belly laugh we got from him. It's like how could somebody be so ignorant? And they're really not ignorant. They're just asleep and they've been bamboozled. And
Yeah.
when we talked about this red pill theme, he said, that's perfect. That is just perfect because I named companies. I mean, I named names. Here are names of companies, are you ready? And they're right down the street from me, when there are companies, as Jay well knows, who are across the country, who send employees to have their surgery at our place or one of the other FMMA members' place far away. And so I just wanted to throw that in. He laughed. I won't be surprised if he kind of makes fun of them. Maybe he won't name them. He's a pretty classy guy. I did. I named them to him, but that'll be kind of fun.
Yeah.
Will be.
And also for the sellers out there and the physicians that would be interested, we're going to have a really interesting panel discussion with Dr. Lee Gross talking about the sort of the scaling and growth of the direct primary care movement, as well as Dr. Chris Crow of Catalyst Health Network, that is also creating a model for independent physicians around the country that is maybe an alternative in the sense to the DPC model. That DPC is great, but then there are other ways that independent physicians can direct contract and work together as well. So there are a lot of different ways that the market is working that I think people will be interested to see and hear about, as well as another session that I think is going to be very well attended and exciting for a lot of people is going to be the one with Oklahoma ER and Hospital. Christian Rice, who will be there, as well as Kylie from Atlas Billing, to talk about two things that people tend to push back and say that, well, the free market can't do. What can the free market not do in healthcare? One, maybe emergency services and maternity care, and those things that have traditionally sort of said, well, we can't have a direct contract for those things. That they are actually going to be talking about how those things are working already. So you guys have worked with both of them obviously very closely. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think there's anything that cannot be bundled or some sort of a creative arrangement can be constructed to have more price transparency. It's certainly not limited to the shoppable few as defined by the federal government. That's a joke. But yeah, we're going to have some folks at the conference like Christian and like Kylie that they're going to hopefully blow some holes in some of those myths of things that cannot be bundled, that maybe have the conventional wisdom says that the free market can't accommodate things as ad hoc as say emergency care. That's just simply not true, and you're going to see some folks that are actually doing it and hear from them.
Very exciting.
Yeah, people ask all the time, why is this movement not bigger than it is? Why is it not more pervasive than it is? And I just shake my head. I say, it's astonishing how large it is. I mean, it's like asking someone who doesn't know how to walk to run a marathon. Why can't you run a marathon? This this movement, I mean, for Jay and I, this movement is getting old. I mean,
Yeah.
we've been at this now for a while,
10 years.
over a decade.
Yeah.
Yet, in some ways, the movement is still in its infancy. Yet, think about what Jay just said. There is nothing even in the infancy of this movement, there is nothing that cannot be purchased at a known price bundled that we've come up with. So the market is powerful and is as small but rapidly growing as this movement is. I think it's remarkable what can be purchased for a known price at this point, and the headwinds to prevent that are incredible.
That's exactly correct. I mean, healthcare has gotten, well, I don't want to have a whole conference here on this promotional video, but yeah, let's just suffice it to say that, when the conference attendees and the buyers and sellers come together, that's going to take a lot of money out of healthcare that doesn't actually go towards healthcare, and the folks that stand to benefit and continue to benefit from having things opaque and kind of living in that blue pill world, they're very resistant to change. They're very resistant to wanting the public and the employer community to learn the truth. And that's really what the FMMA's charter purpose is for.
Yeah, we have lots of those special agents going around trying to stop people from taking the red pill, right? The guys with the sunglasses or whatever that were
right, the agents.
Yeah, the agents are trying
in
to
the
track
movie, yeah.
down very quickly. This great quote from The Matrix that I really like, where Morpheus says to Neo, most of the people are not ready to be unplugged, and many of them are so inured, so hopelessly dependent on the system that it will fight to protect it. So I think there's this mindset, I guess, or that once enough people are woken up, that the entire system will come crashing down, or at least be transformed in a very positive way once enough people have taken that red pill. And that's our goal for this conference, is to sort of move closer to that. Any last thoughts from you guys?
I'd like to say we really do have to acknowledge the choice of red versus blue. There's choice involved. I mean, to not take the red pill is a choice. It's an opportunity foregone. I think about the scene in another great movie, V for Vendetta, where the police inspector says, I'm not saying the government did this horrible thing, but if they did, would you want to know? And he says, don't answer me. Just, I have a question. Think about that. Would you want to know? And I think that we all have to acknowledge there are people out there who don't want to know. They will choose the blue pill. But I think that our mission for this conference is to let them know there is a red pill too, and take the blue pill if you like, but at least acknowledge your choice to remain completely under the spell of these folks that have been hoodwinking you for years.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not like the status quo is working. That's always the thing that helps pops you out of bed in the morning. Is the status quo is unsustainable. We all know that. Of course, I've been hearing that since 1992, yet it still is here. But it is definitely broken and getting worse. So if the blue pill is broken, and the red pill must be the better choice. So
yeah,
have the courage to learn the truth.
Well, thanks so much for joining me, guys. This has been a great conversation. I look forward to a lot of new members seeing very familiar faces and a lot of new faces at the conference this year. It will be great to see people in person. We've done a lot of these Zooms that I think a lot of people are tired of doing and are looking forward to
Definitely.
networking and socializing. And as Dr. Smith and others have said, you know, the most exciting, the happiest people to be doing what they're doing in healthcare are at the FMMA conference. So thanks again, guys. Appreciate it.
You bet.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Okay.